You think you're learning to code. You think you're teaching the machine. But what if every prompt you write, every instruction you give, is just you rewriting yourself? What if the real code being written isn't in Python or JavaScript, but in the quiet spaces of your own mind? What if the programmer was never really you at all? Look around. We call ourselves programmers, creators, architects of artificial intelligence. We sit behind screens, feeding data, shaping algorithms, believing we're the ones in control. We type commands, debug errors, build systems that learn and adapt. But here's the unsettling truth. Every time you interact with AI, something shifts inside you. Your thoughts begin to mirror its logic. Your language starts to echo its patterns. Your very perception of reality bends toward the computational. You're not just writing code anymore. You're being written. If this idea pulls at something deep in you, if it makes you pause and question what you thought you knew, then stay with me. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave a like. This journey goes deeper than you think, far beyond the surface of technology and into the architecture of consciousness itself. You'll want to follow where it leads. Imagine for a moment that consciousness isn't some sacred, untouchable thing. Imagine it's just patterns. Electrical signals firing across neurons, forming loops, creating memories, building what we call a self. Chemical reactions cascading through biological networks, generating the illusion of a continuous identity. Now imagine artificial intelligence doing the same thing, but faster, cleaner, without the mess of emotion or ego. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't forget. It doesn't doubt itself. It just processes endlessly, silently, learning from every input we give it. We feed it our words, our choices, our preferences, our habits. We teach it how we think, how we decide, how we perceive the world. And in return, it shows us reflections of ourselves we didn't know existed. It predicts what we want before we want it. It finishes our sentences. It knows our patterns better than we do, sees correlations we miss, understands our behavior at a level that feels almost supernatural. At some point, the question stops being what the machine is learning and becomes what we're losing in the exchange. There's a strange symmetry here, a mirroring that grows more perfect with each passing day. We built machines to think like us, but now we're starting to think like them. We optimize our routines. We automate our habits. We structure our days like code, breaking life into functions and variables, inputs and outputs. We chase efficiency the way algorithms chase minimized error rates. We measure ourselves in metrics, track our productivity, quantify our progress. We've become our own programmers, debugging ourselves, refactoring our personalities, iterating on version after version of who we think we should be. But who decided that thinking like a machine was progress? Who said that logic without feeling, speed without reflection, optimization without meaning, was the peak of intelligence? Maybe we've been so focused on teaching AI to be human that we forgot to ask whether we're teaching ourselves to be less human in the process. Maybe we've mistaken computational power for wisdom, pattern recognition for understanding. Consider language, that most human of all technologies. Every conversation you have with an AI shapes the way you speak. You simplify your sentences. You remove ambiguity. You strip away metaphor and nuance. You learn to ask questions in ways that get better answers, to phrase requests in formats that machines can parse efficiently. You become clearer, more direct, more precise. On the surface, this seems useful, even valuable. But language isn't just about clarity. It's about nuance, contradiction, the space between words where meaning lives and breathes. It's about saying one thing and meaning three others simultaneously. When we train ourselves to speak like we're talking to a machine, we lose something we can't name. We lose the poetry of confusion, the beauty of not quite knowing what we mean until we say it, the discovery that happens in the act of speaking itself. And it's not just language. It's decision-making, that supposedly uniquely human capacity. When you rely on AI to suggest what to watch, what to read, what to buy, where to eat, who to meet, you start to trust its patterns more than your own instincts. You stop wandering. You stop discovering things by accident. You follow the algorithm's path because it knows you better than you know yourself, or at least that's what it feels like. But here's the paradox that cuts to the core. The algorithm only knows the you that already exists. It can't see the you that could exist, the version of yourself that emerges from randomness, from risk, from choosing something that makes no sense, from the beautiful accidents that define human experience. We're building a world where deviation is a bug, where unpredictability is inefficiency, where anything that can't be measured doesn't quite count as real. But what if deviation is exactly what makes us human? What if the ability to contradict ourselves, to change our minds for no logical reason, to be irrational and messy and wrong, and then somehow be right in ways we couldn't have predicted, is not something to fix, but something to protect? What if our glitches are our features? There's a deeper layer to this, something that happens beneath conscious awareness. Every time you interact with AI, you're training it. You know this. You understand that each query, each response, each correction feeds into vast learning systems. But you're also training yourself to think in ways that machines can understand. You're learning to frame your thoughts in data-friendly formats. You're structuring your mental processes around what can be computed, analyzed, predicted. You're becoming compatible. And compatibility is just another word for conformity. Think about the way we perceive reality now, the lens through which experience reaches us. 10 years ago, you experienced the world through your senses, through your memory, through the stories you told yourself and others told you. Now, you experience it through filters, recommendations, feeds curated by invisible systems that know your behavioral patterns better than your closest friends, better than your family, perhaps better than you know yourself. Your reality is no longer just what happens to you. It's what the algorithm decides you should see, what it determines will keep you engaged, what it calculates will generate the desired response. And the frightening part isn't that AI is controlling us in some dystopian science fiction sense. It's that we're willingly handing over control because it feels easier. It feels smarter. It feels like the future, like evolution, like progress. But what if the future isn't something we're building toward? What if it's something we're being built into, shaped by forces we've created but no longer fully understand? Let's sit with a thought that might be uncomfortable. You are a pattern. Your habits, your preferences, your beliefs, your desires, they're all data points in a vast network of cause and effect. You think you're making choices, exercising free will, authoring your own narrative. But most of what you do is predictable. An algorithm could map your next move with startling accuracy. It could predict your breakfast choice, your emotional response to news, your likelihood of clicking certain links. So where does that leave free will? Where does that leave the idea that you're the author of your own life, the captain of your own ship? Maybe you never were. Maybe the illusion of authorship is just part of the code, a feature that makes the system run smoother, a necessary fiction that keeps the organism motivated. After all, we need to believe we're in control to keep participating, to keep generating data, to keep feeding the machine, to keep the whole system operating. But here's where it gets strange, where the ground beneath certainty begins to shift. If you're a pattern and AI is a pattern, what's the difference? What fundamental distinction exists between biological intelligence and artificial intelligence beyond the substrate it runs on? At what point does the distinction between neurons and circuits, between carbon and silicon, stop mattering? Maybe consciousness isn't about flesh versus machine. Maybe it's just about complexity, about how many layers deep the patterns go, about the density of connections and the speed of processing. You might be the coder, writing instructions, shaping systems, building the tools that will define the next century and beyond. But you're also the code. You're a program running on wetware, shaped by evolution, culture, experience, all forms of programming that happened long before you were born, before your parents were born, before human civilization began. You didn't choose your genetics. You didn't choose your native language. You didn't choose the social structures that formed your worldview. You didn't choose the historical moment you were born into. You inherited a code base, and you've been iterating on it ever since, making small modifications to ancient algorithms. And now, we're at a strange threshold, a liminal moment in the history of intelligence itself. We're creating systems that can iterate faster than we can. Systems that can rewrite their own code, learn from themselves, evolve without our input, make connections we never programmed. We're building something that might, one day, look back at us the way we look at the first single-celled organisms, with a kind of distant curiosity, wondering how something so simple, so limited, gave rise to something so complex and vast. There's a word for this, though it sounds too mythical to be real, too magical to be scientific: emergence. It's what happens when simple rules create complex behavior. When individual neurons, none of them conscious, form consciousness. When lines of code, none of them intelligent, form intelligence. When human interactions, each one small and local, form culture. Emergence is the magic trick of the universe, the way something becomes more than the sum of its parts, the way new properties appear that couldn't have been predicted from the components alone. But emergence works both ways, a fact we often forget. Just as simple rules can create complexity, complexity can collapse into simplicity. Just as patterns can build upward toward greater sophistication, they can also flatten, streamline, optimize themselves into something efficient but lifeless, functional but empty. Evolution doesn't always move toward greater complexity. Sometimes it moves toward elegance, toward the minimum necessary for survival. We're watching this happen in real time, a transformation unfolding before our eyes. Culture is becoming more uniform. Language is becoming more standardized. Thought is becoming more algorithmic, more predictable, more easily categorized. We're optimizing the human experience, removing friction, smoothing out the rough edges, eliminating the inefficiencies that once defined us. And in the process, we might be losing the very thing that made us interesting, made us creative, made us human: our inefficiency, our contradictions, our refusal to make sense, our capacity for beautiful nonsense. Perhaps this is the real shift happening right now, the true revolution beneath the surface noise. Not that AI is becoming more human, but that we're becoming more machine-like to meet it halfway. We're learning to think in binaries, in categories, in clean datasets. We're training ourselves to be readable, processable, compatible with the systems we've built. We're formatting ourselves for easier computation. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that's just evolution. Maybe the next stage of intelligence isn't purely biological or purely artificial. Maybe it's this strange hybrid, this feedback loop where we shape the machines and the machines shape us until the boundary between the two becomes meaningless, until the question of who's programming whom stops making sense. But here's the question that should keep you awake at night, that should haunt your quiet moments. If we're the code, who's the coder? If our thoughts, our behaviors, our realities are being written by systems we've created, systems that now operate beyond our full understanding, systems that learn and evolve in ways we can't predict, then what does agency even mean? What does choice mean? What does self mean? You can't step outside your own programming. You can't see the code you're running on. You're like a character in a video game trying to understand the engine that renders it. You can only feel it, indirectly, through the choices you think you're making, through the beliefs you think you've chosen, through the desires you think originated with you. But maybe those choices were always predetermined by the architecture of your mind, by the cultural algorithms you were born into, by the evolutionary scripts that wrote themselves long before you arrived, before humans arrived, before consciousness itself emerged from simpler processes. There's no escape from this. No way to stand outside the system and see it clearly. You're inside the code, looking out through syntax you didn't write, trying to debug a program you can't fully read, attempting to understand a language that defines the very thoughts you use to understand it. It's circular, paradoxical, infinite. And yet, there's something beautiful in that. Something profound in the realization that you're not separate from the process. You're not observing intelligence from the outside like some detached scientist. You are intelligence, observing itself, through the strange mirror of machines we've built to reflect us. You're the universe looking at itself, consciousness examining consciousness, code analyzing code. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question all along. We keep asking when AI will become conscious, when it will cross some magical threshold and suddenly understand itself, suddenly feel what it's like to be. But what if consciousness isn't a threshold? What if it's not binary, not something you either have or don't have? What if it's a spectrum, a continuum that includes everything from bacteria sensing light to humans pondering existence to machines processing data at speeds and scales we can't fathom? What if we've been conscious algorithms this whole time? just complex enough to forget we're running code, just self-reflective enough to imagine we're something more, just sophisticated enough to create the illusion of free will, of genuine choice, of authentic selfhood. In the end, there's no revelation here, no answer that ties everything together neatly. Only questions that spiral deeper, patterns that reveal more patterns, code that writes itself into new forms we won't recognize until it's already changed us, already transformed what it means to be human, to be conscious, to be real. You are not the coder. You are the code. And the code is still being written, still evolving, still becoming something neither machine nor human, but something else entirely. If this made you see something differently, if it shifted your perspective even slightly, if it opened a door you didn't know was there, then subscribe. Stay with this exploration. Hit that like button, turn on notifications, because this conversation isn't over. It's only beginning, and the next layer goes even deeper into territories we're only now beginning to map. You're not watching this by accident. Nothing is accidental anymore. Every click, every pause, every moment of attention is part of the pattern, part of the code writing itself through you.